There is a moment in sport that almost nobody talks about. September 9th, 2007. A small track meet in Rieti, Italy. Nothing special about the venue. Nothing special about the crowd. But Asafa Powell walked onto that track and did something that rewired people's understanding of what a human being was physically capable of. He ran 9.74 seconds in the 100 meters in a qualifying round. And he eased up so badly in the final 30 meters that people watching live could not believe what the clock was showing. They thought it was broken. Then he came back for the final later that same day and ran 9.78. 2 runs under 9.80 in a single afternoon. That had never been done before. And in the nearly 2 decades since, it has barely been done again. That is how rare that day was. One man, one afternoon, 2 numbers that didn't seem real. Now fast forward to today, because we are going to talk about a man who stood up in front of the world and said he was going to make Asafa Powell look ordinary. A man who said he was going to shatter Usain Bolt's untouched 9.58 world record and run 9.42. Maybe even 9.2. That man is Fred Kerley. And what actually happened is one of the most fascinating, complicated, and ultimately human stories that the sport of sprinting has produced in years. Before we get to what Kerley did or didn't do, you need to understand who Fred Kerley actually is, because if you only know him from recent headlines, you are missing the full picture. Fred Kerley was born on May 7, 1995 in San Antonio, Texas. He grew up in Taylor, Texas, raised by his aunt. No mom, no dad, just a kid with speed and an absolute refusal to be stopped by whatever life put in front of him. He came up through South Plains College, then the University of Texas, and he initially built his name in the 400 meters before dropping down to shorter distances. What he eventually assembled was one of the rarest athletic resumes in the history of sprinting. He is one of only 3 athletes on Earth who have ever run under 44 seconds in the 400, under 20 seconds in the 200, and under 10 seconds in the 100. Let that sink in for a second. 3 events. 3 barriers. 3 of them broken by one man. He won silver at the Tokyo 2021 Olympics. He won the World Championship gold in the 100 meters in 2022. And then at the Paris 2024 Olympics, he ran 9.81 and took bronze in one of the most competitive sprint finals ever assembled on a track. His personal best of 9.76 set in 2022 puts him comfortably inside the top 10 fastest humans to ever draw breath on this planet. This is not a gimmick. This is not someone chasing a payday because their career is over. This is a genuinely, historically elite sprinter. The kind of athlete who comes along maybe once in a generation. But then 2025 happened, and everything started to unravel in ways that were difficult to watch for anyone who had followed his career. In January of 2025, Kerley was arrested in Florida. Then on May 1st, he was arrested again, just ahead of the Miami Grand Slam track meeting. He pulled out of the U.S. National Championships in the 100 meters, which automatically made him ineligible for Team USA at the 2025 World Athletics Championships in Tokyo. And to top all of that, he received a provisional suspension for whereabouts failures. What that means is he missed 3 drug tests within a 12-month window, and under the rules of World Athletics, that is treated as a potential doping violation. Kerley went on record and said the situation had nothing to do with drugs. He said testers showed up to his house unannounced while he was dealing with personal matters. He said he does not need anything to run fast. You can believe him or not. That is not for me to decide. But what is inarguable is that the optics were catastrophic. Then in September 2025, he made an announcement that set the track world on fire. He was signing with the Enhanced Games. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, the Enhanced Games is a sporting league that openly and explicitly allows performance-enhancing drugs. No testing, no bans, no limits. The whole premise is that athletes should be free to use whatever they want in the name of breaking records. Kerley's announcement came alongside social media posts about something called Project 9.42, images referencing the Joker from The Dark Knight, pictures of stacked cash, and eventually talk of wanting a private jet with the number 9.2 painted on the bottom. World Athletics President Sebastian Coe called the Enhanced Games, and I am paraphrasing only slightly here, moronic. Most people in the track community agreed, but Fred Kerley had made his choice. Here is where the mathematics become important, because the gap between what Kerley was promising and what physics and history suggest is actually possible is enormous. Usain Bolt set the 100-meter world record at 9.58 seconds at the 2009 World Championships in Berlin, at the end of a full competitive season, in the shape of his life, on the greatest night of his career. Kerley's personal best is 9.76. The gap between Kerley and that record is 0.18 seconds. The gap between the world record and 9.42 is 0.34 seconds. And in sprinting, 0.34 seconds is not a gap. It is a chasm. To put it in the kind of concrete terms that make it land properly, back in 2011, Justin Gatlin ran the 100 meters on a Japanese television show. They set up industrial fans behind him that produced a wind reading of just over 25 meters per second. That is roughly 12 times the legal wind limit of 2.0 meters per second. With literally 12 times the legal amount of wind assistance blasting him down the track, Gatlin ran 9.45. Still not 9.42. And as for 9.2, there is no scientific basis for that number existing in a sprint race on this planet anytime soon. The fastest doped athlete ever caught by anti-doping authorities was Tyson Gay, who ran 9.69 as his career best. Even at his absolute peak, under whatever he was taking, he was more than a tenth of a second behind Bolt's record. A tenth of a second in sprinting is a lifetime. Gay ran 9.69. The world record is 9.58. Fred Kerley was promising 9.42. The numbers simply do not add up. When the Enhanced Games finally ran in May 2026 at Resorts World Las Vegas, the field assembled for the men's 100 meters included Kerley in lane 4, Emmanuel Matadi in lane 2, Marvin Bracy Williams, Reese Prescott, Mohamedou Fall, and Mike Bryan. Now, before we talk about what happened on the track, let me tell you about Emmanuel Matadi, because he is genuinely one of the more interesting human beings competing in sprinting right now. He is a 3-time Olympian from Liberia. He was born during a civil war. He became his country's flag bearer at the Olympics. He was competing in Las Vegas at 34 years old, and he said openly that this was his final chance to leave something behind in the sport. Whatever you think of the Enhanced Games as a concept, Matadi's presence in that field was not cynical. It was a man chasing one last moment. That is worth acknowledging. But the honest reality of the rest of this field is harder to ignore. Several of these athletes had not been competitive at the highest level for years. And then before the race even started, 4 false starts happened in succession. A flinch, an equipment issue, at least one clean restart that had the crowd standing and waiting to exhale. Here is what most casual sports fans do not understand about false starts. They kill race sharpness. Every time a sprinter climbs back into the blocks, their mind starts managing the start instead of attacking the race. By the 4th false start, you are not running the race you prepared for. You are surviving the chaos and hoping your body remembers what to do. That psychological reset matters. It matters enormously at the elite level. When the gun finally went clean, Kerley separated from the field by about 40 meters and won in 9.97 seconds. 9.97, not 9.42. Not even close to his personal best of 9.76. Not even a sub 9.80 performance. The kind of thing he had already done multiple times in his career without any pharmaceutical assistance at all. And then, and this is the part that people are still talking about, Kerley grabbed the microphone and told his competitors they needed to train harder and get on their protocol more. Which is a remarkable thing to say when you just told the world you ran clean at the Drug Olympics. He walked away with $250,000. Nobody broke the world record. Nobody ran close to their personal bests. Marvin Bracy Williams, a former world relay champion, ran 10.33. Several athletes in the field ran slower than times they had posted in high school. Across the entire track program at the Enhanced Games event, athletes averaged roughly half a second behind their career personal bests. The women's 100-meter winner ran 11.25. The whole production raised more questions than it answered, and the biggest question of all is the one that nobody involved seemed prepared to address. If performance-enhancing drugs make athletes faster, why was everyone slower? Now, I want to shift completely, because this video is not just about Fred Kerley, and the reason for that is simple. If you only watch the Enhanced Games story in isolation, you miss the broader picture of what is happening in track and field right now. And 2 of the most extraordinary stories in the sport happened not in a Las Vegas casino, but in an arena in Torun, Poland on March 22, 2026 at the World Indoor Championships. Georgia Hunter Bell stood on the start line of the 1,500-meter final. Nobody in that stadium could have predicted what was about to happen. Not because she was not good enough, but because just 2 years before this race, she was sitting at a desk in London selling cybersecurity software. And the last time she had run seriously on a track before her comeback, she crossed the finish line wanting it to be the final time she ever would. She was 23 years old when she quit. She had gone to UC Berkeley on a full athletic scholarship, one of the most prestigious track programs in the entire world. And instead of kicking on toward the elite level, she got worse. Injuries, illness, declining times. Every week she expected a breakthrough. Every week came another setback. By the time she graduated, the decision was not dramatic. It was quiet. She ran her final NCAA race, came off the track, and just knew. She said herself she felt completely numb standing on the start line that day. No nerves, no excitement. Just a girl who was done with something that had consumed her entire childhood, and she was ready to walk away from it forever. She moved back to London. She worked briefly in textiles. Then she spent 7 years in tech sales at a cybersecurity firm called HackerOne. Nobody at the office knew she had once been a promising elite runner. Nobody knew about Berkeley. She was just another person with a lanyard and a laptop. And for a while, she said, that was genuinely fine. She was free from the pressure. She had a normal life. But somewhere under all of that, something was quietly going wrong. She stopped waking up with purpose. She wasn't showing up as the friend she wanted to be, the daughter she wanted to be, the employee she wanted to be. She spent 5 months in therapy just working through what her life looked like without the thing that had defined her since she was a child. And then COVID hit. Gyms closed. Offices shut. And like millions of people around the world in that strange quiet period, Georgia found herself with nothing but time and a pair of trainers. She started running again. Not to compete. Not to chase times. Just to feel something. She got into cycling too, pushed by her now husband. She fell off her cleats plenty of times early on. But she kept going. And then one Saturday morning, she entered a local 5K park run, just a few hundred strangers running through a park on a weekend morning. She ran just over 16 minutes. And something woke back up inside her. In 2023, she entered the Duathlon World Championships in Ibiza and won her age group. It was the first time she had pulled on a Team GB kit since she had walked away from the sport. She cried. Then in early 2024, she took annual leave from her job to join a training camp in South Africa with some of Britain's best middle-distance runners, including Trevor, Jenny, and Keely Hodgkinson. She kept up with them in the reps, not close enough to celebrate, but close enough that both coaches stopped mid-session and looked at each other. That was the moment they pulled her aside and told her flat out that she could run the Olympic qualifying time. She quit her job the following week. Paris, 2024. The 1,500-meter final. Georgia Hunter Bell had been born in Paris 30 years earlier. She said that morning she woke up with a calmness she had never felt before in a race and simply knew she was the underdog. Nobody was putting pressure on her. Nobody expected her to medal. And then she ran 3 minutes and 52.61 seconds, a British national record, and crossed the line in bronze medal position. She collapsed on the track. She saw her family in the stands. That medal was later upgraded to silver after a doping disqualification of a competitor above her. 2 medals from one race. One performance. One woman who had walked away from all of it, and then walked back in when nobody was looking. And then, at those same World Indoor Championships in Turin in March 2026, Georgia stood on the start line again. And once again, she delivered. She is now one of the most quietly compelling athletes in the entire sport. A woman who proves, every time she races, that the story is never as over as you think it is. But the final story I want to leave you with is about someone who is just getting started. Cooper Loetkenhaus is 17 years old. He still goes to high school in Texas. He still does homework. He still worries about exams. On the same night that Georgia made history in Turin, Cooper walked into that arena and became the youngest individual world champion in the entire history of track and field. Not the youngest this decade. Not the youngest this generation. The youngest ever. Cooper was born on December 19, 2008, just north of Dallas. Running was already woven into the fabric of his family. His dad ran the 800 meters at the University of North Texas. His mom was a 2-time Texas state qualifier in the relay. His older brother ran 150 at Nike Outdoor Nationals and now runs for the University of Tulsa. The Luetkenhaus family knew the sport, but none of them had seen anything like what Cooper was about to do. His freshman year of high school told anyone paying attention that something different was happening. Cooper went undefeated in the 800 meters, won 3 national meets, won the Texas state title in 1 minute and 49.84 seconds. Also ran 47.33 in the 400. At 14 years old, he had the speed of a sprinter and the endurance of a distance runner simultaneously, which is the combination that coaches dream about and almost never see. Nike noticed. They selected him for their elite high school program, which takes only 40 athletes from the entire country each year. Cooper was in 8th grade when that call came. Sophomore year is when things became genuinely historic. In June 2025, Michael Granville had held the American high school 800-meter record since 1996. 29 years. Cooper erased it at the Brooks PR Invitational with 1 minute and 46.26 seconds. Then 2 weeks later at Nike Outdoor Nationals, he pushed it even further to 1 minute and 45.45 seconds. A 16-year-old was destroying a record that had survived 3 decades. And then came the race that everyone who saw it will remember. The 800-meter final at that meet was loaded with professionals. Donovan Brazier was in the field, the 2019 world champion. Bryce Hoppel, the American record holder, was in the field. Josh Hoey, the 2025 world indoor champion, was in the field. These were not just good runners. These were the best Americans alive in this event. Cooper Luetkenhaus, a 16-year-old who had homework due the following Monday, lined up against all of them. With 300 meters to go, the 4 professionals broke away from the field. A normal teenager would have accepted the gap and held on for whatever place they could salvage. Cooper did the opposite. He launched his kick. He ran down Hoey. He ran down Miller. He ran down Hoppel. He could not catch Brazier, who won in 1 minute and 42.16 seconds. But Cooper crossed the line second in 1 minute and 42.27 seconds. That time shattered the world under 18 record by 1.1 full seconds, a record that had stood since 2011. Cooper became the 4th fastest American in history at the 800 meters. As a high school sophomore, Donovan Brazier stood in the mixed zone afterward and said something that I think deserves to close this video out. He said, "This kid is phenomenal. I am glad I am 28 and maybe only have a few years left. I hopefully will not have to deal with him in his prime because that dude is definitely pretty special." And that is the thing about this sport. The Fred Kerley story is compelling because it is complicated. A genuine all-time great, unraveling in public, chasing something that the numbers suggest was never real. The Georgia Hunter Bell story is compelling because it is proof that second acts exist, that the thing you walked away from might still be waiting for you if you are willing to come back on different terms. And the Cooper Luetkenhaus story is compelling because the best of it is still ahead. He is 17. He is still in school. And he is already one of the most decorated junior runners in the history of the sport. 3 stories. 3 completely different kinds of athlete. 1 sport. And all of it happening right now. That is what makes track and field worth paying attention to.